Okay, guys, the irreplaceable PWK emulsion tube is now replaceable. I have made up my first batch of emulsion tubes, so I'm going to talk about the product that I'm selling. We're going to talk about the emulsion tube itself, how it works. That's important to know if you're not familiar with the emulsion tube. First, let's the emulsion tube vocabulary. You're probably thinking it's not an emulsion tube. You're right. It's not an emulsion tube. The correct terminology is needle jet. This here is a true emulsion tube from a keihin CVK. You can see the small holes. Please focus. You can see the small holes that forces air into the fuel. It emulsifies it or atomizes it, and then as it comes out, it has a very fine particle size, which helps with combustion. So this is a true emulsion tube. These are called needle jets, but for the purpose of the video, I'm going to call them emulsion tubes because sometimes people get confused between needle jet and jet needle, and I get confused. So I prefer to use the term emulsion tube. So, all right, where were we? So, the emulsion tube. This is your jet block. This goes into your keihin PWK, and it works its magic. That's the main jet. That's the pilot jet. And this here, the emulsion tube goes inside that brass jet inside there, and that hole just in front of it is called a progression port for those that are not familiar. So what happens is you have your slide and the needle, tapered needle, and that goes in and out of that emulsion tube with throttle openings to meter the amount of fuel. Now that is critical because if this wears, and we'll go into the wear part of it next. If that wears, then you have a very rich condition, and you might notice no matter what you do, you can't get it to run leaner. When you try and you run smaller pilot jets, 32, 35, these are really tiny pilot jets. Then what you do is you out of frustration, as I did in the past, you cut the slide to try and lean it out. Now I've cut this and I've had to 3-bond it back up. Because once I realized the slide is not the issue, it was the emulsion tube that was the issue. Then I had to repair it. So I'm trying to make this as short as I can. I can't because there's just so many details that have to be covered. So if you're already bored, skip this, buy the emulsion tube, and just install it. And we will go through a little bit about the installation process as well, because it's really not that difficult. All right, so we've covered. All right, so we're going to talk about the wear. Emulsion tubes do wear, that's true, but not like people think. And let me give you some examples. So if this was worn 0.01 of a millimeter, you would feel a difference in the way the engine runs. You would not see that difference. It's not. People say, oh, well, it must be ovaled. That's not true. You will not see 0.01 or 0.02, 0.03. I don't know what number you will actually see when it's ovaled. But being ovaled is not the issue. And wear is not exactly the issue either, because these tend to last quite a while. It's corrosion. This is a brass insert. Brass is made of zinc and copper, and it corrodes. Here is the original from my KDX, and I wish I could show you the corrosion on the inside because that would really highlight it, but as much as I tried putting the jeweler's loop on the camera and zooming in, I cannot pick up on that corrosion. It's very difficult. But corrosion is the main cause. So even if this looks perfect from the naked eye, you could use a ping gauge and it would check out perfectly, as it did. But it's not until you look inside and see scratches or corrosion that you get an understanding of how this is feeding excess fuel into your bike. Right, so hopefully that covers that. Now, I had to pause it just to think of the next step. So we're going to talk about the removing the emulsion tube and fitting the new one. And then this will come into play, these little aluminium buttons here. This camera's really not focusing. So to remove it, you simply turn it this way, set it on something not hard. Wood is ideal, hardwood, softwood. You're going to take a suitably sized piece of rod. Drill bits also work well. It wants to be the same size as that inner diameter, because you're going to feed it in there, and you're simply going to tap it out. Keep it steady, give it strong taps, don't allow it to vibrate, and that emulsion tube will tap out. You want it a lot shorter than that. That's just for demonstration purposes. That emulsion tube will tap out. Now, before you tap it out, I should have mentioned this. You want to check that dimension. Where's my? Oh, it's on the wrong side. We want to check this dimension from the top of the shroud, and we want to see what that dimension is. Now, I think this one is around 7.6. I can't get an accurate measurement with one hand. So you want to check that dimension from the top of the shroud to the face of the emulsion tube, and then you want to tap in your replacement emulsion tube. Now, to tap it in, so here is the emulsion tube. Now, what I found when tapping these in is if this area here gets damaged whatsoever, you are going to completely change the metering of the fuel. And I found it when I was making the prototypes, I found it very difficult to tap this in without damaging that. So that's where I came up with this little brass button idea. This is just a soft grade of aluminium, little knob on the end that will sit on the top. And now you have a soft surface to tap to. Ideally, if you could put that in a vise, we're going to tap that in. If you could put that in a vise and bring it together and push that emulsion tube in, that's the best way of doing it. If you don't have a vise, just sit it like that. Put your emulsion tube inside, and then you can tap that emulsion tube in to that required height. Remember that required height. Now, just on that required height, if you have a Chinese carburetor, the emulsion tube, and this is why they run badly, the emulsion tube internal diameter is wrong, the length of them is wrong, and the way they are inserted, the height that they're inserted in the jet block is wrong. So these are even going to be ideal for your Chinese carburetors. If you just cannot get that Chinese carburetor sorted, then these are going to be a great replacement. Now, before you start saying just buy an original, remember there are 250 countries in the world. We don't all have access to those original carburetors. Some people have tariffs and imports on US products. Some people cannot afford genuine carburetors. So, so it's easy to judge when you have money, but if you don't have money, your options are limited. Now, just on that internal diameter, this is the most critical dimension. It has to be accurate to 0.01 of a millimeter. These are cut on the latest CNC machines. They are dimensionally checked by me before they go out the door, and we use a straight cut reamer to keep that as accurate as possible. And again, before that goes out the door, that internal measurement is checked by me. What else needs to be mentioned? I think that covers nearly everything. What I haven't covered is the price. These are $12 US each for this set, plus $7 US 50 postage. I tried my best to get that postage down, even though it's such a tiny item and a tiny package. That's one that's ready to be shipped out to a customer. I cannot get that price under US $7.50. Since COVID, prices have gone through the roof. If I am able to bring that price down, I will pass that on to the consumer. Like I say, they are dimensionally checked by me with my micrometer. That's it, guys. That is the product. Any questions, ask me. I will you can contact me on Facebook, and you can pay by PayPal. I ask that you pay the fees so we can keep the prices down and leave out the middleman. I will give you my Facebook contact details, and email address if needed, because you can search Facebook with that email address. That's it, guys. I appreciate you watching.